My sister slept my baby at Christmas dinner, and no one said a word. Hi, I'm Natalie. Last Christmas, my sister Vanessa reached across the table and struck my 6-month-old son across the face during our family dinner while everyone watched in frozen silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They all just sat there as if nothing outrageous had happened. But then my husband, David, slowly rose from his chair in his military dress uniform, fixed my sister with an icy stare, and said in a quiet, commanding voice, "Get out." She left that night, and what happened over the next 3 days would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. The Sterling family Christmas dinner had always been Vanessa's show. This year was no different. She arrived nearly 2 hours late in her white Tesla, unloading ring lights and even a hired cameraman to document our authentic family Christmas for her lifestyle blog. I watched from the doorway with my baby Lucas, balanced on my hip as my mother, Patricia, scrambled to rearrange the dining room for Vanessa's filming equipment. The house smelled of cinnamon and roast turkey, but beneath that cozy holiday aroma lay the familiar tension of any Sterling gathering. My father, Robert, sat in his recliner in the corner, eyes on his phone, deliberately oblivious to the chaos swirling around his eldest daughter. Vanessa breezed in wearing a chic winter white dress, greeting the camera crew before acknowledging us. She'd been hyping this dinner to her followers for weeks, promising a family gratitude special. What she hadn't mentioned was that David had just returned from a 6-month overseas deployment, or that we'd driven 3 hours in an ice storm so my parents could meet their first grandchild for the very first time. None of that fit into the narrative she wanted for her audience. In our family, if something wasn't about Vanessa, it simply wasn't acknowledged. I settled Lucas into the antique wooden high chair we'd brought, an heirloom from David's grandmother that looked out of place amid Vanessa's sleek staging. My husband emerged from the guest room in his formal uniform. He'd worn it hoping to impress my folks. Even off duty, he carried himself with the calm authority of an officer. He caught my eye and gave me a reassuring smile, the kind that said we'll get through this, though I already felt the old anxiety creeping in. The dining room barely resembled my parents' home now. Vanessa even rearranged the decor. Nothing was off limits if it didn't fit her aesthetic. Mom fluttered around her, eager to please, adjusting the table settings and making sure every dish was picture perfect. The turkey had been carved and meticulously arranged under Vanessa's direction to capture the perfect shot. I bit my tongue. I'd learned long ago that objecting only earned me a reputation as jealous or unsupportive. Keeping Vanessa happy was the unspoken rule, even if it meant turning Christmas into a staged photo shoot. At last we sat down, crowded around the table as the cameraman hovered with his lens. I found that David and I had been subtly pushed toward the far end, nearly out of frame, an afterthought at our own family table. Lucas gurgled in his high chair between us, wide-eyed at the bright lights and commotion. "Wait, I need to do my intro," Vanessa announced just as we began lifting our forks. She held up a manicured hand and turned to address the rolling camera. Instantly, she was in influencer mode. Chin lifted, voice warm and flowing as she delivered a polished speech about family traditions and the importance of togetherness. We sat there in awkward silence, nothing to do but exchange uncomfortable glances while she performed. She somehow managed not to mention a single one of us by name during her 10-minute spiel. Certainly not David's deployment, or the fact that it was Lucas's first Christmas. In Vanessa's narrative, our real lives were mere props. Finally, she ended with a radiant smile. "Cut," she chirped to her cameraman. The red light switched off. We all exhaled as if released from a spell. Mom leapt up to start serving, making sure Vanessa's plate was filled first with the choicest cut of turkey. Dad put down his phone to carve for the rest of us, though I noticed he cast anxious glances at the camera equipment, as if afraid of doing something to upset the production. At first, the conversation was civil, if shallow. Vanessa, of course, dominated it, bubbling about her latest brand partnerships and an exciting new project in the works. Mom hung on every word, asking about her follower count as if receiving a report from royalty. I attempted to share a bit about our life at Fort Henderson, David's recent promotion, how we were adjusting to parenthood, but my words were met with polite nods and promptly forgotten. It was like I was invisible. David noticed, of course. With quiet determination, he tried steering the conversation back to me a few times, asking Mom questions about the charity drive I'd organized on base or prompting me to tell a cute story about Lucas. Each time, I saw a flicker of irritation on Vanessa's face before she deftly grabbed back the spotlight. The talk inevitably veered to her again. Her travels, her ideas, her world. I fell silent and pushed peas around my plate, my appetite gone. It was as if we existed only as an audience for Vanessa's life. Still, we managed some semblance of a meal. Lucas was remarkably well-behaved for a 6-month-old, contentedly gumming a soft teether clipped to his tray. Every so often he babbled or giggled at the twinkle of Christmas lights. Each sound drew a sharp look from Vanessa and a reflexive hush from Mom. I kept one eye on my son, hoping he could hold out just a bit longer. Halfway through dinner, Vanessa declared it was time to resume filming for some candid family moments. The cameraman hoisted his rig back onto his shoulder. "Just act natural," Vanessa trilled, tossing her glossy hair over one shoulder. Natural. The irony made me want to laugh. Nothing about this was candid or normal. Still, we all tried to pretend to chat and eat normally while the camera glared in the corner. Under the pressure of performance, any scrap of genuine feeling left the table. The atmosphere grew brittle. Vanessa was now both participant and director, correcting our conversation if it strayed off course, shushing us if our laughter got too loud, resetting moments that weren't picture perfect. At one point, she actually stopped Dad mid-sentence because Mom's laugh was too jarring for the audio. Mom blushed and apologized to the camera. I felt anger simmering under my skin. We weren't a family enjoying a holiday. We were unpaid actors in the Vanessa show. And none of our real thoughts or feelings mattered. Meanwhile, Lucas's patience was wearing thin. It was past his bedtime, and he'd had enough of the high chair. His little whimpers grew into soft cries. I recognized the tired cry creeping up. I shifted to unbuckle him. "I'll take him to the guest room for a few minutes," I whispered to David, thinking a quick break might help. Before I could lift Lucas out, Vanessa's head snapped toward me. "Don't you dare," she hissed quietly, eyes flashing. Then, sweetly, loud enough for the camera, "Oh, look at the little fussy one. The beautiful messiness of family life, right?" She gestured for the cameraman to zoom in on Lucas's flushed, teary face. I froze, unbelieving. My son's distress was entertainment to her. I shot Vanessa a glare and cradled Lucas, trying to soothe him without leaving my chair. "He's overwhelmed. I'm just going to." "Natalie, he's fine," Vanessa snapped, still smiling for the camera as if nothing was wrong. Through her clenched teeth, she added, "Babies cry. We all need to adapt. Don't ruin this." My mother cast me a warning glance. "Your sister's trying to include him, dear. A little crying won't hurt." Lucas's whine had escalated to a true cry now, his face scrunched, tiny fists trembling. The sound cut through me. "He needs a quiet space," I said firmly, rising with him in my arms. Vanessa slammed her hand on the table, startling us all. "Natalie, stop being so dramatic," she snapped. "I know what I'm doing. I used to babysit plenty of kids. Sometimes they need a firm touch to learn boundaries." I stared at her, speechless. Who was this person? Certainly not the sister I thought I knew. Lucas's wails grew louder, a heartbreaking siren in the middle of the dinner table. I bounced him gently, heart pounding with anxiety and anger. Vanessa's jaw tightened as the crying continued unabated, interfering with her audio. Her eyes were on the cameraman's furrowed brow and her perfect evening unraveling. "Enough," she said under her breath. And then she stood, leaned across the table, and slapped my son. The crack of Vanessa's palm against Lucas's cheek echoed in the dining room. For an instant, time stopped. My mind couldn't process what I'd just seen. My beautiful boy's head jolting sideways, the shock in his wide, watering eyes. There was a single beat of stunned silence. Lucas inhaled in horror, face crimson, and let out a scream, shrill, confused, full of hurt. "Did you?" I gasped, half rising from my chair in disbelief. Lucas was trembling in my arms, wailing. A vivid red handprint bloomed on his soft cheek. Across the table, Vanessa blinked, as if even she couldn't believe what she'd done. Her hand hovered in the air. "I just meant to get his attention," she stammered. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I heard myself shout, clutching my sobbing baby protectively. My voice shattered the silence, and suddenly everyone unfroze. My mother jumped up, eyes huge. "Vanessa." "Oh my God." Dad's fork clattered to his plate. "Now, hold on," he mumbled, shell-shocked. The cameraman lowered his camera, mouth agape. He looked to Vanessa for guidance, unsure if this nightmare was still part of the show. But the only person truly moving was David. He stood slowly, pushing his chair back with deliberate calm. His face was eerily composed, but I could see the fire in his eyes. He walked over to me and gently took Lucas from my arms. Our son reached for his daddy instinctively, sobbing into David's chest. David's voice, when he spoke, was quiet and tightly controlled. "Turn off the camera," he said to the cameraman. Not a shout, not a plea, an order. The man obeyed at once, fumbling to flick off the recording light. David turned to Vanessa, holding our hysterical child with one arm. "You just struck my infant son," he said in a low voice that shook with restrained anger. "Explain to me why you thought that was acceptable." Vanessa's face had gone pale. He was screaming," she sputtered, defensive. Tears welled in her eyes. "I was just trying to stop. You were all just sitting there. I was trying to discipline him a little, to teach him. He's 6 months old." I cried. I was on my feet too, shaking from head to toe. Rage and shock coursed through me like electricity. My poor baby's cries were quieter now, little hiccuping sobs against David's shoulder, but his body still trembled. I reached out and touched the bright red mark on his cheek with a trembling hand. A mother's fury flooded through me. David's tone never wavered. "He is a baby, Vanessa. A crying baby. That's not misbehavior. That's him communicating. And you," he took a breath, trying to stay composed. "You hit him. It was just a tap." Vanessa wailed, as if she were the victim now. "You're all overreacting. He's fine, Look at him," David said coldly, stepping aside so she could see Lucas's tear-streaked face furrowed against his chest. "Does he look fine? There's a handprint on his face. Your handprint." He glanced around the table. "And not one of you moved to stop her. Not one of you said a single word until I did." My father hung his head. My mother put a hand over her mouth, speechless. Guilt and panic warred on her features. Vanessa's lip quivered. She looked to her parents for backup, but they were mute. So she hardened. "This is my family too," she snapped at David. "You have no right to order me out like." "That's enough," I cut in, my voice icy. I locked eyes with my sister, The person I had idolized and feared in equal measure growing up. Pack your things and leave. No. If you come near my son again, my voice broke, but I steadied it. I won't hesitate to call the police. I mean it. For a moment, Vanessa looked as if I'd slapped her. In her eyes flashed something like genuine hurt, quickly swallowed by rage. She opened her mouth, maybe to scream at me, maybe to apologize, but nothing came out. Instead, with a strangled sob, she spun around and fled to the guest room where her coat and gear were. Mom found her voice at last, rushing to me. Natalie, she's your sister. I stepped back from Mom's outstretched hand. Don't, I warned, my tone sharper than any I'd ever used with her. I was done with the excuses, the pretending. We're leaving. And we're not coming back. Natalie, please, it's Christmas. Mom cried, tears spilling. This is all a misunderstanding. I let out a hollow laugh. A misunderstanding? Look at your grandson's face and tell me what there is to misunderstand. David handed Lucas, still whimpering, to me and began gathering our diaper bag and coats with efficient motions. I rocked my baby, trying to calm his shudders, my own heart slamming in my chest. My father shuffled toward us, hands raised placatingly. Let's not make any rash decisions, kids. We can talk this. No, David said firmly as he shrugged on his coat. He looked my father in the eye. If you had stopped her when she raised a hand, maybe we could discuss. But you all sat and watched my son get hit. So there's nothing more to say tonight. By now, Vanessa had reappeared in the hall, her face streaked with tears and fury, camera equipment clattering in her arms. You're destroying our family over nothing, she yelled at me as we headed to the door. He's fine. He's not even crying now, see? You're all overreacting. I felt a surge of white-hot anger, but David squeezed my hand gently, stepping between my sister and me. He fixed Vanessa with a look so full of contempt that she actually fell silent. If you truly believe striking a baby is nothing, then I pity you, he said quietly. And if any of you ever think of calling my wife overreacting again, remember tonight. The only reason that child is quiet now is because he finally feels safe. With that, he opened the front door for me. We walked out into the frigid night, leaving behind the stunned, shattered silence of my family home. Mom was sobbing, begging me not to go. Dad hovered in the doorway, ashen and powerless. Vanessa stood on the porch, arms wrapped around herself, breath steaming in angry bursts in the winter air. I did not look back. The drive home was silent, except for the occasional shuddering sigh from Lucas in the backseat. He fell asleep, exhausted, a faint pink mark on his cheek, the only evidence of the horror we'd just endured. I stared at that mark under the passing glow of streetlights, feeling equal parts heartbreak and boiling rage. My own sister had done that. And my parents, my protectors, had sat by and let it happen. When we finally pulled into our driveway, I realized my hands were still shaking. We put Lucas to bed, showering him with soft kisses and extra care, though he was already sleeping deeply, innocence mercifully restored in slumber. Then, in the living room, I collapsed onto the couch. I was still wearing my dress coat. I hadn't even taken off my boots. David sat down beside me heavily. For a long time, we just sat in the hush of our own home, the Christmas tree lights blinking gently as if nothing had changed, as if our world hadn't just been blown apart. I didn't realize I was crying until a tear splashed onto my clenched hands. Suddenly, it all came pouring out. The shock, the anger, the betrayal. Deep, guttural sobs that I tried and failed to stifle. David pulled me into his chest without a word. He didn't tell me it's okay, or sure. He just held me while I broke. They let her do it. I choked out at last between sobs. They just sat there and watched, like it didn't even matter. David's arms tightened around me. I know, he murmured. In those 2 words was all the outrage and sorrow he felt too. And you, I pulled back to look at him through blurry eyes. David, you defended us. You stood up when no one else would. My voice trembled. Do you know how much that means to me? He brushed a tear off my cheek with his thumb. That's what family is supposed to do, not protect each other. His jaw clenched slightly. Your family should have done the same. I'm sorry they failed you. They failed Lucas. I buried my face in the crook of his neck and we stayed like that, entangled on the couch amid the soft glow of Christmas lights, until my tears ran dry. I hoped naively that maybe the worst was behind us. But when morning came, the real battle began. I woke to my phone buzzing insistently on the coffee table. In the gray dawn light, I saw the caller ID Mom. David, already up and feeding Lucas in the kitchen, looked toward me in concern. Girding myself, I answered. Mom's voice was breathless, anxious. Natalie. Thank goodness. Are you okay? Is Lucas okay? We're fine, I replied flatly, throat raw. In truth, I was exhausted and heartsick, but I wasn't about to share that with her. Mom rushed on, words tumbling out. I've been so worried. Vanessa is absolutely beside herself. She knows she overstepped. She wanted me to tell you how sorry she is. She didn't sleep at all. She wants to apologize to you in person. I closed my eyes. The audacity of it hit me like a slap of its own. She slapped my baby, Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. What is there to discuss? Mom sighed sharply, as if I were being difficult. Sweetheart, listen. It wasn't as bad as you're making it out. She was just trying to help in her way. The evening was getting very stressful. Her filming was disrupted and, do you even hear yourself? I cut in, my free hand curling into a fist. Her filming was disrupted, so that makes it okay to hit an infant? Don't twist my words. Mom snapped, then softened immediately. Honey, of course it wasn't okay that she tapped him a little too hard. I almost dropped the phone. Tapped him a little too hard. The minimization made my blood boil. On the speaker, I heard Mom continue, but you have to understand the context. She was frazzled. People make mistakes when they're under pressure. We all do. You've always had a tendency to, well, blow things out of proportion. There it was. The old refrain. Natalie, you're being dramatic. I felt a chilling déjà vu, remembering every childhood argument where I ended up the one apologizing because I'd been convinced I was overreacting. My voice shook. I saw a handprint on my son's face last night. He cried himself to sleep. How can you call that blowing things out of proportion? On the other end, Mom hesitated, then spoke in that slow, careful tone reserved for unreasonable people. Lucas is okay now, isn't he? Babies are resilient. He won't even remember this happened. And I'm sure the mark you saw was just from him crying so hard. His face got red, that's all. You know, in the heat of the moment things can seem worse. A cold clarity washed over me. I can't believe what I'm hearing, I said quietly. My eyes met David's. He was standing in the kitchen doorway, Lucas dozing on his shoulder, listening with a grim face. You're defending her. She hit your grandson and you're making excuses. Mom's voice sharpened. I am not excusing it. But she's your sister, and she's devastated. Family means forgiving one mistake and moving on. We need to come together and heal, not keep pointing fingers. Listen to me carefully, I replied, each word clipped. Until Vanessa acknowledges what she did and gets professional help, we will not be at any family gatherings with her. I will not expose Lucas to that again. Mom started crying then, pleading. Please, Natalie, don't do this. It's Christmas Day. We can fix this. Vanessa is ready to apologize to you and David. She knows she was wrong. If she knows she was wrong, she can tell that to a parenting counselor or a therapist, I said. Until then, my child's safety comes first. Mom's tears turned to anger. This is David influencing you, isn't it? With his rigid ideas. He doesn't understand how our family works. In families, we forgive. We don't just banish one another. A stunned laugh escaped me. David shook his head, stepping forward like he might grab the phone from me, but I held up a hand. No, Mom. This is me. This is your daughter, a mother now, protecting her child. Something you should have done last night but didn't. There was silence, just Mom's soft sobbing. Then quietly I heard her say, if you walk away now, don't expect us to chase you. You'll be the one tearing this family apart. Tears burned in my eyes. This was how it always went. When guilt didn't work, they turned to guilt-tripping me. I'm not the one who shattered everything, Mom. That was Vanessa. I'm just making sure it never happens again. She started to reply, but I had nothing left to say. I hung up. By midday, I'd also endured a call from Dad, who tried a gentler approach, talking about second chances and not letting a lifetime of sisterhood be ruined over a single mistake. I responded with a single question. Would you let someone who hit a baby hold your child? He hemmed and hawed, saying, well, it's not that simple. That's when I thanked him for calling and ended the conversation. The third call, surprisingly, came from Vanessa herself. I nearly didn't answer, but a morbid curiosity, or perhaps a desperate hope, made me pick up. Natalie. Her voice was soft, ragged. It didn't sound like her polished influencer tone at all, more like a scared teenager. I can't stop thinking about what I did. I was so out of line. I feel like the worst aunt, the worst sister. I sat down at the kitchen table, gripping the phone. I could hear genuine tears in her voice, and it cracked something in me. You hurt us, Vanessa, I said quietly. You hurt Lucas. I need to know, do you really understand that? Or are you just upset that we left? I understand, she insisted. I swear, I never meant to hurt him. I don't even know what I was thinking. I was just so stressed and he was screaming and I hate myself for it, Nat. I really do. She sounded broken. And this was the sister I remembered from our youth. The one who used to beg for my forgiveness if she snapped at me. The one who truly cared deep down. My guarded heart opened a fraction. I believe you're sorry, I said slowly. But I'm also really angry. And hurt. You have to give me time. I will, she said eagerly. Take all the time you need. I hope eventually you'll let me show you I can change. I'm even looking up parenting classes, she added, voice wavering hopefully. Maybe I could take one to learn about babies. I never want to scare Lucas again. You have to know I love him. I love you. My throat tightened with emotion. In spite of everything, I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe this nightmare could resolve. I love you too, Vanessa, I admitted. But things have to be different. This can't ever happen again. And Mom and Dad have to stop sweeping problems under the rug. Yes, agreed, she said quickly. They mean well, but they're from a different generation. They don't get it. But you and me, we can be on the same page, right? We'll work it out together. Something about her saying together made me uneasy. Already subtly shifting blame onto our parents, framing it as her and I teaming up, rather than her facing what she alone had done. But I let it go for now. Maybe, I said cautiously. It will take time, but maybe. When we hung up, I actually felt a weight lift. I turned to David, who had been listening quietly nearby. She apologized, I said, half amazed. Like, truly apologized. And she said she's willing to change. David gave me a gentle, skeptical look. I hope that's true, he said. But words are easy, Nat. Let's see what her actions show. Less than 24 hours later, we got our answer. It was our neighbor and friend, Chloe, who alerted me. Around mid-morning the next day, Chloe texted, "Saw Vanessa's Instagram story. OMG. Are you okay?" My stomach plunged. I hadn't so much as glanced at social media since the incident. With trembling fingers, I opened Instagram and navigated to Vanessa's profile. She had posted a series of story updates labeled Family Drama and Moving Forward. The first was a photo of our family at the dinner table earlier that night, everyone smiling. Across it, Vanessa had written, "Family, where life isn't perfect, but love carries us through." I tapped through, heart pounding. Next came a black screen with text. Vanessa had typed out a heartfelt-sounding message about how last night didn't go as planned. She spoke about different parenting styles and miscommunications, turning a special night tense. She preached about forgiveness, patience, and how holidays can be hard on everyone. I felt my jaw drop. It was a masterful piece of vague PR, zero mention of what actually happened, no admission that she had caused it. To any outsider, it sounded like a minor disagreement, with both sides maybe at fault, and her taking the high road. Then I saw the final part of her story, a photo of her holding Lucas. It was taken earlier in the evening before the slap, when she'd briefly held him for the camera. The caption, "No matter what, Auntie Nessa will always love this little guy." A heart emoji followed. I nearly threw my phone in disgust. The nerve, the absolute gall, to use my child's image to paint herself as the loving aunt. Meanwhile, in reality, my son had a bruise on his cheek because of her. Comments poured in from her followers, eating it up. "You're so mature to handle it like this," one wrote. "Family is everything, hope you guys work it out," said another. They were applauding her, sympathizing with her. "She's protecting her brand," I whispered, voice shaking with fury. I felt sick. David came over, concerned by my expression. I wordlessly showed him Vanessa's story. His face darkened as he swiped through the frames. "She turned herself into the victim," he said, anger underlining each word, and conveniently left out the part where she assaulted our child. All the tentative hope I'd felt from our phone call collapsed. She hadn't changed at all. She was simply shifting into damage control mode, manipulating the narrative to maintain her angelic image. Perhaps her late-night apology to me had just been part of that strategy, making sure I wouldn't contradict her public story. "Enough," I said, standing on legs that felt surprisingly steady. My heart still ached, but now it was hardened by resolve. I'd been cast as the villain in her story for the last time. I quickly drafted a message and sent it to our family group chat. I saw Vanessa's Instagram. Since she isn't interested in telling the truth, let me be clear, we will not attend any family gatherings if Vanessa is present until she acknowledges what she did and gets help. Our child's safety is not negotiable. The responses were immediate and predictably furious. Mom texted, "How could you do this to your sister publicly? Please take that back." Dad wrote, "This is too harsh, let's talk." Even a cousin chimed in, shocked I'd air family laundry in public, though I hadn't said a word publicly, only to the family chat. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened a blank document on my laptop and began writing everything. I described the dinner, blow by blow. I wrote down direct quotes, what Vanessa said, what my parents said after. I saved screenshots of Vanessa's Instagram lies. I was done second-guessing my own memories. I wanted it all laid out in front of me, undeniable. David quietly joined me at the dining table with his own laptop. He forwarded me a photo he'd taken of Lucas's cheek last night while I was putting the baby in the car, faint pink fingerprints visible on soft skin. He also compiled a log of the calls and messages from my family with timestamps and summaries of their content. We were creating a paper trail, as if preparing for battle. And in a way, we were. Through all of this, calls continued to buzz on my phone. I muted it. If they weren't going to listen, I had nothing more to say. That evening, I made a call I probably should have made years ago, to my Aunt Linda, Mom's older sister. If anyone in our family had a history of level-headedness and honesty, it was Linda. She lived a few states away, and we weren't extremely close, but she'd always been kind to me. As a child, I remembered her occasional pointed remarks like, "Patricia, you're too soft on that girl," which I hadn't understood at the time. Now I wondered. When I told Aunt Linda the whole story in a rush, Vanessa's slap, the family's reaction, the Instagram charade, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, voice heavy, "I'm so sorry, honey." I'm not surprised, though. I've seen this pattern for a long time. That made me blink. What pattern? Aunt Linda sighed. Your parents have spent your sister's entire life shielding her from consequences. Covering up things. Making you and others feel like you were wrong to be upset. I never wanted to interfere, but I saw it happening. She went on to recount several incidents I'd only vaguely heard of or never knew. How at a family reunion years ago, teenage Vanessa had shoved our little cousin down some stairs out of impatience, then cried that it was an accident. How at another holiday, she'd snatched a toy out of a toddler's hand so roughly the child had a bruise, but the family hushed it up. Minor mistakes, always explained away. My parents smoothing ruffled feathers, apologizing on her behalf, but never truly holding her accountable. I listened in disbelief, anger bubbling anew. How could I have been so blind? These stories resonated with the countless smaller moments I did remember. Vanessa breaking my things or pulling my hair when we were kids, and Mom scolding me for upsetting my sister. She's not mentally ill or evil, Aunt Linda said gently. She's just never been allowed to experience a real consequence. Your mother in particular, her guilt over Vanessa's early difficulties. I frowned, not understanding. Linda hesitated, then revealed something I hadn't known. As a young child, Vanessa had had developmental delays. My parents had poured everything into helping her catch up, therapy, special schooling, and she did catch up, flourishing by high school. But it left them overly protective, blind to her flaws, as if acknowledging any fault was admitting some failure in their parenting. It clicked. My parents saw Vanessa perpetually as someone to protect, not to hold accountable. And they saw any conflict involving her as something to defuse at all costs, usually by silencing the other party. When I hung up with Aunt Linda, my eyes were opened wider than ever. Vanessa's slap was horrifying in isolation, but in context, it was the apex of a long, long history. A history I refused to let repeat with my son or any child. Over the next 2 days, David and I fortified our position. We consulted a military legal advisor about formally documenting the incident in case of any future custody or legal disputes. The idea of Vanessa ever trying to claim a right to see Lucas chilled me, but we prepared for it. We also made an appointment with Lucas's pediatrician, who duly noted the incident and checked him over, finding him physically fine, thank God, but making it clear that what happened was unequivocally abuse. It felt validating to have a professional say that out loud. Armed with statements from Aunt Linda and even a couple of cousins who reached out privately to share their own yes, I saw her do X once and your parents covered it up stories, I finally felt sure of one thing. I wasn't crazy. This was real. It was serious. And I had every right to protect my child. On the third day, an email arrived from a law firm, Vanessa's lawyer. A cease and desist letter. My hands shook slightly as I read it. She was accusing me of spreading false, defamatory information and intentional interference with her business relationships. I actually laughed under my breath at the sheer gall. She slapped my baby, lied about it online, and now had the nerve to sick a lawyer on me for telling the truth to my own family? David read the letter over my shoulder. They're bluffing, he said. Truth isn't defamation. And they have to know you have plenty of evidence. Still, receiving that threat cinched it for me. Vanessa hadn't truly come to terms with what she did at all. This was war for her image versus our reality. With our attorney's help, we crafted a response that made our stance clear. I would not be silenced. We attached a summary of the evidence, photos of Lucas's cheek, written statements from witnesses to past events, even an offer to share the video of the slap if needed. Thankfully, the cameraman had indeed captured the moment, and that raw footage was in a secure folder now, though we hoped never to need it. We said we had no desire to involve the public or harm Vanessa's career, but we would not lie about what happened. Then we sent copies to Vanessa's lawyer and CC'd my parents. It was a final shot across the bow. The truth is out, and we will not back down. Things went strangely quiet after that. No more calls or texts for a couple of days. It was as if my family didn't know what to do with me now that I wasn't playing my assigned role of peacekeeper or doormat. Fine by me. On the fourth day, an unexpected call came, not from family, but from a TV producer. It turned out Vanessa's reality show aspirations had progressed. She'd submitted the Christmas footage as part of her audition reel. And the network had caught wind that something concerning might have happened during that shoot. The producer politely inquired if I could clarify. I told her the truth, calmly and succinctly. Yes, there was an incident of a child being harmed. No, it wasn't a miscommunication. It was a serious lapse in judgment by one individual. I didn't editorialize beyond that. The producer thanked me and said that, as a precaution, they'd be reevaluating the project. I hung up and actually felt a little sorry for my sister, for about a minute. She had been on the cusp of her big breakthrough, and her own actions had sabotaged it. But then I remembered Lucas's terrified cry, and any pity evaporated. Choices have consequences. She was finally facing some. That evening, just after dusk, our doorbell rang. My heart kicked in my chest. Peering out the window, I saw Vanessa on our porch. She looked terrible, eyes red and wild, pacing like a caged animal. I'll handle this, David said firmly. He had already pulled out his phone to record, anticipating fireworks. We opened the door together. The icy air gusted in around my sister's figure. She was shivering in just a thin sweater. Mascara tracks streaked her cheeks. The moment she saw us, her face twisted with rage. You, she snarled, pointing a shaking finger at me. You've ruined everything. I said nothing. David's presence beside me was solid, unmoving. My sponsors, my show, my reputation, all of it, she shouted, voice cracking. The network pulled out. Emails from brands are drying up. Because you couldn't just let one little thing go. I made one mistake, Natalie, and you destroyed me for it. Her voice broke on a sob. I felt a mix of anger and sadness at the sight of her, this frenzied, desperate person I barely recognized as my sister. You destroyed yourself, I said quietly. When you hit my child. He's fine, she screamed, as if that were the point. But my life is in pieces. All because of you and your husband and your dramatic nonsense. Lower your voice, David interjected, deadly calm. Our baby is sleeping inside. We can talk, but you will not wake him. She scoffed bitterly. Oh, listen to you. barking orders as usual. Enjoy playing hero, Dave? Enjoy turning my sister against me? This is probably what you wanted all along, to isolate her from her family. Enough, I said, stepping forward. David put a protective arm in front of me, but I gently moved it aside. I met Vanessa's eyes, searching for any remnant of the sister I loved. This isn't about David. It's about you and what you did. You're not the victim here. Her lip trembled. I apologized, she whimpered. I begged you to forgive me. And you said you would. You lied. I shook my head slowly. I wanted to believe you truly felt sorry. But then you went and lied to the world, V. You tried to make me question what I know happened. And then you threatened me with lawyers. That's not what remorse looks like. Hot tears rolled down her face. I was scared, she cried. Everything I built was on the line. I panicked. People panic, Nat. It doesn't mean I'm not sorry. I sighed, feeling a weary ache in my chest. Being sorry means doing everything in your power to make sure you never hurt someone like that again. It doesn't mean manipulating and threatening when you don't like the consequences. She stared at me, breathing hard. In the dim porch light, she looked much older than 28, lines of stress etched around her eyes, her youthful glow extinguished. I can't lose you, she whispered. You're my baby sister. This can't be how it ends. Despite everything, I felt tears prick my eyes. I'm still here, I said softly. But this, I gestured between us, encompassing the toxicity and drama. This has to end. I won't raise my son in the middle of it. Her face hardened again, that prideful stubborn streak taking over. So that's it? You'll cut us all off? Fine, Natalie. Enjoy your perfect little life with Captain America here and your baby. I hope you remember you have parents who are devastated and an entire family who thinks what you're doing is cruel. But hey, you have your new chosen family, right? She practically spat the last two words. I felt David tense, but I placed a hand on his arm. If standing up for my child is cruel, then so be it, I replied. And yes, we are lucky to have friends who support us. But I never wanted to lose my real family, Vanessa. You made that choice when you hit Lucas. Mom and Dad made that choice when they defended you. The door is still open if you, all of you, decide to take responsibility. But until then, I trailed off, voice catching. Until then, we were done. The finality of it hung in the cold air between us. Vanessa wiped her nose on her sleeve, chest heaving. I hope you're happy, she snarled, but her voice broke into a sob. You've always hated that I got more attention, haven't you? Well, congrats. Now you get to be the martyr of the family. Poor Natalie, with the evil sister. That what you wanted? I felt the accusation like a slap, but I steadied myself. What I wanted, I said, was for my son to have a loving, safe, extended family. I see now that's not possible. Not right now. You're no sister of mine, she spat suddenly, eyes blazing through tears. I have no sister. With that, she spun and stumbled off the porch into the night. I watched her go, her words echoing in my ears, carving into my heart. No sister. The gate clanged shut behind her, and in the distance, I heard her car door slam and engine roar away. I realized I was shaking from head to toe. David quietly closed the door and set his phone down, the recording done. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I just stared at the door, as if expecting her to burst back in. When David gently touched my shoulder, it unleashed everything. I sank to the floor, burying my face in my hands, and sobbed. Not for anger this time, but for the loss. I knew that, in all likelihood, my relationship with Vanessa was truly broken, and with it, perhaps my relationship with my parents as well. The family I was born into had fundamentally changed in the span of a few days. David knelt and gathered me into his arms. He didn't try to offer false comfort. He just held me while I grieved the sister I wished I had, the family I thought we were. In the weeks that followed, the dust slowly settled. True to their word, my parents did not chase me. Aside from a short formal email from Dad, acknowledging our decision and expressing hope that time would heal all wounds, we had no direct contact. Through Aunt Linda, I heard that Mom was having a hard time, torn between anger at me and guilt over how she'd handled things. Dad, typical to form, retreated into stoicism and silence. Vanessa moved out of state, Los Angeles, apparently. Her social media took a hit in credibility. Astute followers noticed her family content disappeared entirely, and some anonymous comments hinted that the sister, me, had cut contact. But Vanessa spun it by pivoting to lifestyle and travel content. Outwardly, she carried on. We haven't spoken since that night on my porch. It hurt, deeply, for a while. But as the months passed, I found unexpected peace too. Lucas thrived, chubby-cheeked and giggly, hitting all his milestones. He was too young to remember any of the drama, thank goodness. He only knew that he was safe and adored by the people around him. And we made sure those people were the ones who genuinely cared. Our friends from the base became like family. Captain Ryan Torres and his wife Maria, who had called to show support after hearing what happened, became regular fixtures at our dinner table. Neighbors like Chloe had us over for playdates. No awkwardness or judgment, just kindness. This was the village I wanted for my son, one built on trust and respect. 6 months later, we threw a small first birthday party for Lucas. My parents were invited, on the condition that Vanessa was not to be mentioned. To their credit, they came and behaved, awkward but earnest in wanting to see their grandson. But it was our second gathering, a day later with friends and a few supportive relatives, that truly felt like a celebration. No eggshells to walk on, no secret tensions. At that party, David raised a toast while bouncing Lucas on his hip. To protecting what matters, he said, looking into my eyes. And to the family we choose. Glasses clinked, and I blinked away tears of gratitude. As everyone laughed and mingled freely, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The cycle had been broken. Lucas would grow up never doubting that the adults around him put his well-being first. He'd learn that love isn't something that demands your silence or your sacrifice. It's something that shields you, that stands up and says no when something's not right. That night, after the cake was eaten and the presents opened, I sat in the nursery rocking Lucas to sleep. Warm summer dusk light filtered in through the curtains. He was milk-drunk and heavy-eyed, clutching the new plush teddy my mom had given him as a birthday gift. Gently, I traced the curve of his cheek, so soft, so unblemished. In that moment, an image flashed of the last time I'd done this in this chair, the night of Christmas, when a pink handprint had marked this tender skin. The memory no longer seared as it once did. Time and resolve had scabbed it over. But I would never forget it. In a strange way, I was grateful for that moment now, because it had exposed truth that needed to be exposed, and it had freed me from a lifelong web of denial. I pressed a kiss to Lucas's forehead and breathed in his baby scent. In losing the family I thought I had, I whispered to the dimly lit room, I discovered the family I actually need.